This Halloween, ghoul all out with Instacart. Whether you're hunting for the perfect costume, eyeing that giant bag of candy, or casting spells with eerie decor, we've got it all in one place. Download the Instacart app and get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes. Plus, enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time, minimum $10 per order, service fees, other fees, and additional terms apply. Instacart, bringing the store to your door this Halloween.
1-800-Flowers.com knows that a gift is never just a gift. A gift is an expression of everything you feel and helps to build more meaningful relationships. 1-800-Flowers takes the pressure off by helping you navigate life's important moments by making it simple to find the perfect gift. From flowers and cookies to cake and chocolate, 1-800-Flowers helps guide you in finding the right gift to say how you feel. To learn more, visit 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST.
Hello, you are listening to Just Films and That. This is the podcast where we talk about those films we think deserve a little bit more love. Whether they're underrated or underseen, we're going to talk about them. So, let's see what film it's going to be this week. Hello, yes, thanks for listening. This is Just Films and That. I'm hosting this week. I'm Josh Hallam.
And I'm Jamie Allerton.
And this week we're discussing The Frighteners from 1996. So spoiler warnings if you haven't seen it. Whilst we've got your attention before we start, if you could head on over to whatever app or device, whatever you're listening to this on, give us a little 5-star rating and review. It'd be massively appreciated. And if you're listening to this and you think, do you know what, I'd fancy a little bit more of that, but I wouldn't mind parting with a little bit of money, then click the link in our episode show notes at the bottom for our Patreon, where you can get ad-free extended episodes with early access to them from £1 a month. So, Jamie Allerton.
Josh.
The Frighteners, then.
Yeah. Were you frightened?
I was frightened. So, The Frighteners from 1996, then. Tell the guys at home, what's it about? Why did you pick it?
I love this film. This is one of mine. So, we've not mentioned this, but my sister is a lot older than me, and she showed me those kind of 80s and 90s films that you weren't meant to watch when you were young, and this was definitely I would have been 10 when this was out, and she introduced me and my brother to this, and it 10's the perfect age for this as well, because it's a little bit naughty, it's a little bit violent, but it's kind of comical violence.
Yeah, but not too much.
Yeah, it's a bit scary. This is like a very good introduction to horror, I think, for people between 10 and 14, before you get into your Freddys and your Jasons. And Michael J. Fox was like a childhood hero. He Back to the Future, and he was famously short, which for me, I knew I was going to be short from a young age. So everything about this appealed to me. I thought the tone was, at the time it was comedy and horror, which I think Ghostbusters has only really got that perfect before, and maybe American Werewolf in London. It is hard to kind of get that right. And I thought this got it absolutely spot on. In terms of the plot, if anyone's not seen it, it's Michael J. Fox plays a psychic huckster who actually can see ghosts, but he, instead of using his power, like kind of for the better of man, he uses it to con people. He gets the ghosts to go around to people's houses, pretend like act as poltergeists, and then he shows up, and for a fee, he'll remove those ghosts from your house. But then obviously the plot gets a little bit darker, and he starts chasing down an old killer that might have implications in his own history.
So that's what it's about. Is it underrated? Is it underseen?
So I don't think it's underrated, but this famously bombed. It's on a 26 million budget. The original budget for this was set at 26 million, and then it was given the studio was so, I think this is Universal, they were so impressed with what they'd done, they gave them an extra 6 just to finish the special effects, and it ended up making 29 million.
Right, so that's for the sort of time as well, because that now you get some people wouldn't even make an indie film for 28 million quid now.
You couldn't get Michael J. Fox. For 20 million.
So it's underseen then. I hadn't seen it.
Yeah, it's weird because some films like this I just watch and assume everybody's seen it, because I'm like, well, this is a great film, and then you realize how a cult classic is made. It wouldn't be a cult classic if most of the people hadn't seen it. It'd just be a classic.
Yeah.
Like Ghost. Ghost is not a cult classic. Everyone's seen Ghost.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad went to see Ghost on his own, which every time that film comes up, I like to say, especially in a public forum, because my dad went to see the film Ghost on his own. Because when we asked him about it, he said, "I just wanted to see what all the fuss was about."
Did he ever reenact the pottery bit?
Don't know. Not seen Ghost, so I don't know what you're talking. No,
Jesus, I was about to leave the podcast to be like, right, I can't do this.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen Ghost.
Oh, are you genuinely haven't seen Ghost?
No, I don't think. No, I haven't. I know the famous bits, but I'm always, no, my dad didn't.
The bit where he's a ghost is great.
He is a ghost, and then Whoopi Goldberg's a psychic or something. Anyway,
right, the Frighteners.
So anyway, back to another film with horror and ghosts.
Yeah, so this is Peter Jackson before he's kind of big in Hollywood. This is Peter Jackson pre-Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And this film is important because he kind of but everyone in Hollywood is like, oh, if you're doing a film with a lot of special effects, and at the time this was one of the films with the most special effects in a movie. Everyone was like, well, you're gonna have to use ILM, they're the only ones who are really doing digital stuff. And he had just done Heavenly Creatures using his own effects house, Weta. And you probably heard of Weta because they did all the Lord of the Rings stuff. But he used a lot of the budget for this to get Weta to buy like up-to-date computers and kind of build their department. So without the Frighteners, we don't have Lord of the Rings, I think.
Right. So I didn't know it was Peter Jackson off the surface. Obviously, when I read, I saw that it was, and it's his wife, who's Fran Walsh, who's written it with him as well, should I say? So that's interesting. And that's the sort of thing, like you say, those are the little nuggets of information that people don't know in Hollywood. It's like if there's no this, then there's no this, that sort of thing. So I do think that's really interesting. I mean, there are so many special effects.
Yeah,
in this film.
I love a lot of the special effects. I think some of it is dated. I think the ghost within the house, which is that was the iconic. That's why people who did go see this was because we can, now that we have CGI. In the 90s, there was kind of this excitement about CGI where people could tell it was CGI. But it was just the excitement of, we can do this now. Yeah. Which is why the kind of the morphing of the house, now you think it looks naff, because I think the good CGI in this is the ghosts, the way they've composited them, which is, they filmed every scene twice where there's a ghost. One of them against green screen and then one in reality. So I think the actual look of the ghosts looks great, and the stuff they do, like one of them gets his face blown out by the fly spray.
I like that bit,
yeah. And Peter Jackson's got, if you look at his like really early films, he's got a really like yucky sense about him, which I like.
Yeah, he loves like extreme gore. What was the one that wasn't Heavenly Creatures that?
Was it Brain? Oh, I don't know.
It's the one with the big exploding head guy, not Scanners, obviously. There's something else. But I know what you mean. He's got that super sort of, and you think of like the way that, obviously I know Lord of the Rings is based on pre-existing text and stuff like that, but if you look at like the grotesque nature of like how the orcs and stuff look, it's that sort of like grotesqueness that he likes to bring to himself. I mean, I thought this film was originally really, really interesting. We'll get into that now. So just to remind people of the structure, we start with the likes, then we move on to the dislikes, and then we'll conclude. We'll look at the critical reception and stuff. Obviously, Jamie picked it because underseen, but we'll look at the critical reception along with the box office at the end as well and conclude. So I think there's lots to like about this, but you picked it. So what do you like about it?
So I like that kind of, in an alternate universe, I think Michael J. Fox can be frozen in time as just the Marty McFly, and that's it, because it is his most iconic role. But I really like that you get to see an older Michael J. Fox, and he's playing an interesting character. He's not entirely, heroic. He does do bad things. He was drink driving when he crashed a car and killed his wife. I think the premise is incredible. Like just the idea of someone who can see ghosts, who uses them kind of for their own betterment.
Yeah, what if a world where ghosts really exist and people could see them? Someone would use it to be a con man.
Yeah, I mean, I always think, Ricky Gervais did Ghost World, or not Ghost World, something Ghost. I'm
Ghost
a Ghost.
World he did, where he's a dentist.
Yeah, the dentist one. Yeah. Where straight away you'd be like, how are you not going to Vegas? Why are you not going to Vegas straight away? Yeah. If you've got people who are invisible, go start playing poker, So, and I like that this is someone who's gone, I'll do that. But also it's got some great characters in as well. I think Jake Busey is amazing in this. It's just,
I wanted to bring it up again. Second Jake Busey serial killer film in a few weeks.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I didn't even connect that. That was my choice as well.
It's a shame as well is that no one shoves a baseball bat. A little boy doesn't shove a baseball bat down his throat in this one.
And this one, he is absolutely loathsome where you do want a baseball bat thrown down his throat.
Yeah, and is well, not real, but like in identity. Anyway, I'm about to spoil another film.
Yeah, I mean, I just think tonally this is so fun. You know, it
is fun.
You get some really fun set pieces. And also like you like the ghosts in it. There's some really bizarre Peter Jackson level characters, like the character of Danvers. He's played by Jeffrey Combs, who's like, if you don't know horror, he's an iconic actor from the Reanimated series. So that's like a little treat for horror fans to see him show up and play this insane. I only realized when I did the research, I didn't pick up, and apparently his character was visited by the Manson family when he was a kid, and that's why he's so messed up.
Is it not because he's been undercover?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what led him to do.
I see what you mean. Yeah, I mean, he was probably. So it has that thing in this, which has got a fairly. Not real because it's very fantasist, but a sort of fairly grounded lead performance, likable lead performance from Michael J. Fox, and then they've surrounded him with weird characters, and I think that's. I mean, he was the highlight. I'd not really seen Jeffrey Combs in much before, but I thought he was great as Dammers. Weird to see as well. Weird to see Michael J. Fox playing an adult. I think the only other time I've seen him play an adult, unless you count Stuart Little. Although he's a child mouse in that, so maybe not.
And that mouse is dead now. We know that
mouse is dead now. Is Mars Attacks, and he's sort of like a sleazy businessman or something. I don't know. I haven't seen Mars Attacks for years, but he's a sleazy businessman or something in that, isn't he? But I thought it was an interesting choice because obviously this is 96, so we're not at the height of some of other comedians. But if this is a Jim Carrey or an Eddie Murphy, this is a different film. So I thought by casting him, I thought that was interesting, but also quite brave as well in terms of you're leaning into it being like it's something because of the baggage that he comes with, but it is not an all out and out comedy.
Yeah, I think what you get with Michael J. Fox is a vulnerability. There are moments in this where you are worried for him, and I was trying to remember if he died or not. There's a bit where he purposefully kills himself by being frozen. But then later on, he's killed again, and you do buy into it that because it's not quippy at the time, and it feels like this is one of those where we did iRobot a couple of weeks back, and and Will Smith brought in his team and quipped it up.
Yeah, and you thought it was underrated,
and it was too quippy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But this doesn't feel like it's had that like, oh, let's add a layer of jokes. I think it's more assured in that, and it's because of that. The Peter Jackson and Fran Walsh know exactly what kind of film they want to do, that they've not overdone it on the jokes. And actually, it's quite sad that this got an R rating in America, which is why it struggled to make the box office. He actually designed at the time to be a PG-13, which for us would either be a 12 or a 15. And I think this is a comfortable 15 over here, but they don't have that in the States. So it hit the mark on that. I mean, it missed the mark because tonally this is like it's a 12, isn't it? Or a 15.
So that was, I mean, we'll come on to dislikes. That was one of my main issues, which I thought with some tweaks, there's no reason why this couldn't have been a more family friendly film. I think they needed, we'll come back to it, but I think they probably need to pick a lane a little bit more. I can see why you'd look at this and be like, is it for kids? Is it for adults? I'm not too sure. But at one point, a guy shags a mummy, and other stuff like that. So I think for me, I really enjoy. Like you say, it has that comedy horror genre, which almost doesn't really exist anymore. To the point where it's like uniquely 80s and 90s. Like you say, Ghostbusters, but also made me think of Beetlejuice. It all made me think of even the sort of early 90s Addams family films with Raoul Julia. Casper as well, those sorts of films, and obviously a lot of them are more family, family sort of oriented. But it did make me think of that comedy horror, very Spielberg, very Zemeckis, who I think is a producer on this, a little bit like a sort of more palatable Tim Burton for people. Tim Burton's got a very, very strong visual style, whereas I think this was has got a very strong visual style, but it's not to isolate audience. I actually watched Beetlejuice around the same time as I watched this because not to date it, but the new one's coming out. So I wanted to remind myself of the original, and that is much darker in terms of like how it looks visually. It's much more grotesque in places, whereas this is a little bit more cartoony, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there is them arguments with the tone, because it does it has the slapstick with the, you know, the judge ghost, and at one point a ghost dog is literally trying to grab his jaw as a bone. But then also you have a kind of a serial killer that's based on a real serial killer. You know, I think Johnny Bartlett's meant to be Charles Starkweather.
Yeah, because he talks about him in the film, doesn't he?
He's carving his, you know, one of the saddest moments in this, I think, is when he talks to the ghost of the last victim, the old man, who's like, as I lay dying, he was carving a number into my head, and you're like, oh, that's actually really graphic and disturbing. It's not fun, you know. I mean, every part of Ghostbusters is fun. At no point does a ghost turn to Bill Murray and be like, yeah, you know, I shot my husband and because he was cheating on me. It's just really sad.
So sad. What?
Yeah.
Maybe instead, like the ghost blowjob scene.
Yeah. Why don't you trap us in a container forever? That's fun with no consequences.
There's no existential. You're going to make me die again.
So yeah, but I kind of like the risks this is willing to take, and I don't think you get a movie like this these days. You know, if make it now, the budget's probably looking at what 150 million to get it right, and I don't see a studio making those risks. So I like that it exists on its own. You know, tonally, you can't say this is like it's close to Beetlejuice or Ghostbusters, but it's kind of its own little thing in its own little corner. And also, because it's Peter Jackson, he's shot in New Zealand, so it also looks lovely.
Yeah, no, it does, and it's like you say, it's one of those things. It's an example of if you give at the time relatively up and coming filmmaker time and money and whatever to make what they want to do, they might just give you something like this, which is, like you say, it didn't make any money, but it's very stylistically strong. There's definitely something, and like I really, I don't even know if I've said it yet, I really enjoyed it. I did really enjoy it. But I think it's you give a director something, you know, you give the director the support they need, and they will give you something. Obviously, it's a big swing, and you can never say that something's going to be a success. And there are other films, you know, we've even done this, where it's like they were definitely going for something, and it either was misconstrued by the audience, or they just didn't hit the mark, or for whatever reason. And I think that's definitely this. And I think with some tweaks, like you say, the main issue seems to have been the audience thing and the certification thing. So you do think with another go over, this could have become a Beetlejuice or a Cat, because Beetlejuice isn't a kids film. I think it's a 12 or a 15.
Yeah, I think Beetlejuice is a PG-13.
Is it?
But it's a 15 here. So it's weird that America doesn't have that. Between 13 and 17, America doesn't have that middle kind of, you're an older teenager, whereas we do. And it's 15s,
yeah.
I'm not saying we're better than America, but, you know.
Well, in many ways. And thank you to our American listeners for tuning in.
Thank you.
But no, like you say, we had the
12A.
Yeah. We had the 12A, which was obviously brought in for Spider-Man. Because it was like, spent so much money on this, it has to be good. People have to go and see it. And then there is no, again, this sounds stupid, but I don't think there is no 15A, but they have started bringing in this idea that it could be advisory as well. I think that is something that will come. I mean, we now live in a world where the certification is based on buying cinema tickets in person and potentially buying DVDs and video, whatever, in person. Whereas now, unless you are very stringent with your parental locks and stuff like that, a kid will figure out how to watch what they want on Netflix.
Yeah, and also everyone's seen far worse online now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, yeah. What's the worst thing you've seen? I'm joking.
Probably iRobot.
Yeah. You said you liked iRobot. Okay, so we'll move on then to anything we didn't like about the Frighteners or anything we'd change about the Frighteners. You picked it then, mate. Anything particular for you? I've only got one thing, so is there anything particular for you?
It's just rubbish, isn't it? No. So we already covered
Frighteners, mate.
That's our clip. There's our clip for online. So the CGI, especially on the carpet, is a bit ropey now, which you can't be helped. I still think the technical advancements of this film is great. I don't think it pays off on the premise, because people will describe this film as, oh, he's a con man who uses ghosts to, trick people into giving him money. But actually, no, it's the actual film is about a man whose wife was murdered, and he spends his time trying to track down the murderer because there's been mysterious deaths. And I would have liked to have seen him use the ghosts kind of more proficiently. Like he's stuck in jail at one point, and he just escapes because he gets the doctor to scream out, and then he knocks out the guy. He has these ghosts, which I think there's some moments like, and also we only really got to see him do the hustle once, and that was in introducing like two characters that are quite important to the film. It would have been nice to see him use it and see it be successful as well. Like when you think it's a very small town, so what is this man's day to day? Like, is he just tricking the same 5 people?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think some of the I hadn't really thought about it until you said it, but I do think some of the emotional beats don't land, and it's almost like they weren't sure what they wanted it to be. So, like you said, they use the ghosts for comedy value and to show that little bit of exposition, and then they're just there. They're just sort of there, and similarly with when Ray's character died, he's just sort of like a caricature of a hot-headed 90s husband.
Yeah,
and then he's dead, and it's like there's no emotional weight to the fact that he's died because you've not spent enough time with him. You don't see him die; he just shows up as a ghost one day. And I think, for me, the biggest emotional beat is it doesn't make it clear that for me that Michael J. Fox's character has picked up these powers as a result of dying in a car, of him being in a car accident and his wife dying, and then he can suddenly see ghosts, so he becomes obsessed with catching what happened. I don't think that's clear. It's almost like what happens in the film would have happened to him anyway. He just happens to be in the middle of it all.
Yeah. I mean, he's not actually trying to. He only realizes towards the end that that's how his wife died. He thinks his wife just died from the car crash, and that she ended up with a number on her forehead. But yeah, there's no obsession there. He's actually not moving on. Like the house that he's built, he's stopped building. It's like he's paused. And my God, do they labor the point? There's you can't make a living from the dead. I think they say it like 3 times.
They do say that a lot. Yeah. And like you say, it's a small town. So how is he tricking the same people? And how was it taking the local newspaper so long to figure out that this one guy is doing this con?
Yeah. And the sheriff really likes him as well, even though he shows up to funerals. Like, that's a bit tacky that he'll show up to someone's funeral and be like, here's my card.
Yeah.
Whilst they're burying the person.
And no one goes, why are you at a funeral of someone you don't know, you sicko?
Yeah. Oh, that was the last person I saw.
Yeah.
Kill them, didn't I? But yeah, I mean, but then again, like that's part of the risk taken, is that this isn't a completely likable.
I don't mind the CGI, I have to say. I know what you mean, but I think there's an element of this sort of like like watching Doctor Who and being like, yeah, it's shit, but it's our shit. You know what I mean? It's like accepting how far films and stuff have come. It's like when you watch like the 2000s Scooby-Doo, and Scooby-Doo just looks like he looks like he's not there. He looks like a weird video game cutscene, but you'd also watch it being like, yeah, but when I was like fucking 13, this was really good, and it was a dog walking around or whatever.
Well, at the time, the clip of the ghost coming through the walls was like everywhere on the trailers.
It's in all the marketing as well. It's on the poster and everything. So I understand, but I think if you're gonna use that stick to beat films with, you are never gonna stop.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
And that's why we do this podcast, Josh.
Yeah, even if you look at like the height, the height of cinema in terms of like the biggest budget films, some of them still look like crap. When you look back on them and stuff like that.
Yeah, and thinking about it, they're probably, because the ghost stuff in the house isn't that realistic, it actually makes it more fun than terrifying, which is the tone they want. It is a fun movie. Yeah,
well, let's get on to the tone then, because that's mine. So I would say it's not a dislike so much as I think there's something that they should have changed about it, which is I'm not sure this knows what it wants to be audience-wise. I think there's no reason why this couldn't be a family film like a Addams Family or a Hocus Pocus or something like this. But they didn't do that. So tonally, it's a bit all over the place. So, like you say, some of the violence around, like I suppose that, even Jake Busey and I can't remember the lady's called, but his accomplice who's also killing people, they're quite scary. Like for a kid's film. And it's not a kid's film. It is not a kid's film. But I think because it sort of feels like one. So because you've got like the almost, is it Danny Elfman the score? It's like that sort of you know, like if you think of if you think of Beetlejuice and stuff like that, or I don't know, even something like Men in Black, like that heavy like jinky theme tune makes me think family film.
Yeah, I mean, so they were aiming for a family film. They were aiming for PG-13, and then the MPAA came back and said, "No, this is R-rated because the themes are too dark. It's and there's certain things that they couldn't cut out, like the imagery of the actual, the numbers cut into the forehead, things like that. So then they went, well, if we're going to be R-rated, we might as well throw in, and that's where they went back. And then you have the Danvers head exploding, and the certain graphics that they went, you know what, we're R-rated anyway. But then that's the problem is you've got a film that was made to be for families that they've then added some extra bits. So yeah, you're right. It does kind of, it is a bit off, but then that kind of, for me, is why I like it, because it means it's not a tone that we're used to.
Yeah, no, it's definitely like quite unique in that tone. I can't think of many other things. The closest thing I can probably think of is probably like a Beetlejuice or something like that, where it's something that feels like a family film, but is not a family film. Yeah. When you actually look at it, you go, there's a bit where I literally I was watching it thinking, is he shagging a mummy? And then I was like, in my head, it was like, this is a kid's film. And I was like, oh no, wait, no, it's not a kid's film. It's a, like you say, it's a 12A or whatever.
They've admitted, and it is a failure on the filmmakers that they didn't land that tone. Because when you look at, like, I'd say Gremlins is the perfect, like, just on the edge of what kids can see.
Yeah.
But it still is. I think Gremlins was like an early PG-13, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it would have been just a 12 here. I think maybe PG. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So, and that they kind of got it right there. Whereas with this, it's a failure because they didn't want it to be R-rated. They didn't want it to be an adult film. Yeah, and they had to end up doing that.
And then they got it and went, fuck it, let's put that he's got loads of sex scars in it, the FBI agent or whatever, all that sort of stuff. So it does feel a bit jarring, and I think what you're saying is you like the jarringness.
Yeah, but I can see that that's the reason why this did not make any money.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on then to talking about the critical reception and the box office and stuff, and then we'll sort of wrap it all up then. So just to remind everyone, Jamie, you picked it because you think it's underseen. Box office-wise, didn't do very, very well on quite a high budget relative to the time. So I think we can say it's underseen. I hadn't heard of it, and I think clearly there's some audience issues there that means this isn't getting the attention it deserves. What do you reckon?
Yeah. I mean, it's sad because I think this deserved a lot more. But as I said before, the budget is around about 30 million, and when you look at a production budget, you have to tend to double it for marketing. And this made 29.3. So it was a bomb. It cost the studio money. But reception isn't too bad. So are you ready for?
Yeah, I'm trying to think what do you know what? I wouldn't want to say this one because I feel like it probably the people who like it really like it, and I reckon the critics were probably a bit lukewarm on it.
Yeah, so I'd say this is below kind of what I would like it to be, but I won't argue for it because I kind of get it. But so IMDb 7.1.
Okay.
Rotten Tomatoes audience 71.
Right, bang on, same.
And then critics 67, which I think is a bit harsh.
Yeah, so that averages out at just under 7 out of 10. So I would say that's appropriately rated, but it's definitely underseen.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's more of an 8. And I do need to remind the audience that you like iRobot.
Yeah, that's because you like iRobot too, because it's a good film.
But yeah, it was more that I was surprised when I found out this bombed, because this is just one from my childhood that I'm like, oh, this is a great film.
Yeah, no, and you're right. And with a few tweaks, there's a film in there that would have had much more widespread appeal, but instead it's found its niche in that cult sort of classic market, like you say, rather than just a classic.
Yeah, and I know you do the Twitter surveys sometimes, and if Twitter dare says that this is underseen, then
I'm gonna make loads of fake accounts and spam it. Okay, then there we go. The Frighteners is underseen and appropriately rated. I think is the conclusion there. And Jamie, I think, is happy with that. We'll be back next week with another film, so do make sure to check us out and subscribe. In the meantime, if you'd like to get in touch with us, it's filmsandthatpod@gmail.com. We're on all the social medias. If you just search for Just Films and That on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, then you'll find us. We're always putting stuff out there, so do give us a follow and drop us a message if you want to suggest a film that you think we should take a look at. All that remains to be said then is thank you very much for listening. We do really appreciate it. We'll see you next week. Goodbye from me. Cheerio.
Bye.
And now, a next-level moment from AT&T Business. Say you've sent out a gigantic shipment of pillows, and they need to be there in time for International Sleep Day. You've got AT&T 5G, so you're fully confident. But the vendor isn't responding, and International Sleep Day is tomorrow. Luckily, AT&T 5G lets you deal with any issues with ease, so the pillows will get delivered and everyone can sleep soundly, especially you. AT&T 5G requires a compatible plan and device. 5G is not available everywhere. See att.com/5G for you for details.